Since we're monetizing so many things, I want to thank the Dean for putting $20,000 on the table so that money wouldn't get in the way of who could come and who could not come. So many thanks for that. This was a first effort. We in our unit were known as the Master of Nonprofit Administration. And it just might be interesting for some of you that don't know our history. This degree was founded as the first graduate business degree at Notre Dame in 1954. But it was a less ecumenical era, and Father Hesburgh founded it when nobody really understood what the nonprofit sector was for nuns and brothers that ran 30% of the nation's hospitals and 150 universities and colleges. So our original MBA program was called that, but it was only for those that led Catholic nonprofits. I always said we'd have a better church today if they included bishops getting a lot of that training, but that's off comment. But we founded the Rio MBA about 13 years later, and they needed that name, so we got caught in a brand image. And that leads to my two final metaphors to thank you all for coming and where I think this might have some legs in the future. One is a distinction that I like to make between questions of fact and questions of awareness. So many of you in your presentation said how important it was, especially for nonprofits, to look for the facts, find what the data is before you get into too many opinions, and so how important that is. Fact questions usually begin with who, what, where, how many, and you only have to ask them once if you get good data. But the second kind of question is awareness. Who are we? Where did we come from? And in human growth and development courses, we studied how often we have to ask those questions as we go through life. You know, the young Catholic coming to Notre Dame, the first Sunday, do I go to Mass or not? Am I the same Catholic I was when Mom and Dad were telling me where to go and how to go? I've retired 3 times. Needed to ask a whole lot of awareness questions. Who am I now? Just so many of those things. I don't think we have nearly, in organizational behavior, looked at the importance of awareness questions. But one of the things that I really liked about this conference, we had people from social work backgrounds, we had people from empirical research backgrounds, we have consultants, we have professors, and I really believe that issue of asking the question, who are we, as a community dedicated to community service, needs that kind of latitude. And I think the more we meet cross disciplines like this, might really be something, not just for Notre Dame, but those of you from other academic institutions. I hope this is a beginning of giving us a chance to not just ask the questions of fact and how we can do our business better, but also who we are and to appreciate. Maybe the Canadian economist who goaded us a little bit about don't be too much into saying we're the nonprofit sector. That's why I really think the more and more we come to things like this, it's not just nomenclature, argumentation, to say we're about civic engagement, we're about community benefit. The more and more we define ourselves in those kind of ways, the more and more we invite cross-discipline to enhance what we're able to do. As a director of this program, I will make a commitment to do anything I can with any of you if there's a follow-up networking opportunity that we can do. We offer a lot of executive education under the leadership of Mark. We just had one on social media. If those kind of cross efforts can improve us, there's going to be a meeting in Chicago in July of the Nonprofit Academic College Centers. That's another group where people from public administration schools, social work schools, business schools meet to ask some of these awareness questions of who are we now. I just quote one little anecdote that I experienced when I was head of Catholic Charities that'll come back to keep saying what kind of challenges are we going to be meeting. We gave an award to Daniel Moynihan around 1985. And he had that very New England accent that sometimes we from Pittsburgh had trouble deciding what the predicate was. But we gave him this award, and he was so honored, he got up and he used from the Jewish Bible the widows and the orphans. And he kept saying, to be honored by an organization that so values the widows and the orphans. And then he pronounced it widows, the widows and the orphans, and I just quite couldn't get it. But what I could get was when he said, this was in the middle of the Rust Belt development, he said, be careful of the conspiracy of the deficit. Catholic Charities, 65% of their money comes from the government. Residential child care, 90% of their money comes from the government. And he was making the point that when a deficit gets too high, even good-willed people say, I know that needs to be done, but we just can't afford it. And I think one of the things that I loved about so many of the presentations, the more you give us language to dialogue with that impasse, the more we're going to be able to say, as the gentleman in the back alluded to, what's going to happen if you don't fund us? What's going to happen if you don't get programs that can be proven for what they're giving to our community? Last point, one of my favorite teachings comes from a 13th century scholar called Thomas Aquinas. And he's known for writing long theology and philosophy books, but he also is a great one-liner. And one of his one-liners is, something is received according to the disposition of the receiver. Sounds abstract, but to make sure we wouldn't think that way, at that early time of cross-discipline education, he picked up a cup and filled it with water. And he said, look, water took the shape of the cup. And I just wish there were paper cups then, so there wouldn't be the rigidity. But he reminded us that each one of us has experiences in life that formed our cup. And what we hear is going to take that shape. But I think what I hope we heard today was to be shaken a little bit in the way our cup's been formed. Get a new idea, take a new chance, find another way to look at the issues of social impact. Just to go back to the opening point that Mark made, there's an ambiguity around the phrase. People are using it for a lot of different things. But I felt a lot of clarity came to me in the understanding that I got from so many of you. So I'm pretty sure my cup was a little bit cracked and shaped again, and I just thank all of you for that. So thanks to one and all for coming. I hope you'll give a lot to the conversation Mark's going to introduce after our lunch. And again, just thank you. Amen.